What's up everyone, Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and here we are at the top 10 albums of 2020, at least according to me. 2020 pretty much dragged its dirty asshole across this entire planet, but once again, we actually had some good tunes come out of it, and I would say it was a pretty solid year across the board for metal, and these are my top 10 favorite albums from this year. So let's get it started. Pallbearer, Forgotten Days. This is flat out my favorite straight up doom metal album of this year, and this one came as a bit of a surprise. There was a slight change in their style. They got more riffy, they got heavier, it was less proggy and atmospheric, at least, than Heartless, but this one might have possibly my favorite stuck in my head riff of the entire year with the opening track, Forgotten Days. That riff is permanently lodged in my skull, and I don't know if I want to leave because it's that good. This album is a perfect balance of riff-driven, heavy-ass songs and brilliant atmosphere. It's somber as hell, it's very downtrodden, but man, this is an absolutely killer release, and I mean, pretty much I think their discography is flawless. I love every album. So yeah, picking out a favorite out of their entire discography would be increasingly difficult because once again they released another amazing album. If you have not jammed this album, listen to it. Riffs, atmosphere, heavy, amazing, plenty of other words. Jam it, it's great. Anaal, Nathrakh, Endarkenment. I pretty much knew this album was gonna be badass once I heard all the singles, and my god, they did not let me down. This is still pretty much their perfect blend of industrial metal, grindcore, black metal, death metal, occasionally thrash metal, even power metal. It's amazing how these songs can turn from the most brutal shrieking and tremolo riffs and blast beats to outright catchy anthems. The choruses on this album are unbelievable. The Age of Starlight Ends and Feeding the Death Machine in particular were favorites, but the title track is also absolutely amazing. This band pretty much fired on all cylinders. Their last album was brilliant, and this one may have outdone that one. If you're looking for quite possibly one of the most chaotic listens this year, it's definitely Anaal, Nathrakh, and you'll be surprised at how catchy these amazingly brutal songs are. Absolute must listen. Check it out. Warbringer, Weapons of Tomorrow. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, I think this is flat out their best album yet. These are some of the most well thought out songs in their entire back catalog. There's incredible storytelling aspects, a really good narrative. Glorious End might be one of the coolest songs they ever did. It's just amazing stories about the hardships of war and everything. Heart of Darkness has some incredible black metal moments, but this is still pretty much 100% thrash, and my god, the lead work, the riffs, the vocals are absolutely incredible. They are dramatic. You feel every word. Awesome album. I was not really that shocked because I knew they had it in them, and their last album was really good, but this even surpasses that. This is one of my favorite thrash albums I've heard this year for sure, and actually in recent years. This is just an absolute banger. If you have not checked out Warbringer, definitely check them out. This is a flat out amazing album. Xibalba, Años in Infierno. Hopefully I pronounced that right. This might be my favorite album from these guys so far. Bit of a theme here, I guess. This album careens back and forth between death metal, hardcore, doom, post-metal. It's always heavy, but it's surprisingly almost always heavy in different ways. You get your DB drives, you get sludgy breakdowns, you get lush atmosphere and even clean vocals on here, which I was kind of surprised by because they're really not known for their clean vocals. The production on this album is unbelievably heavy. These are fiercely down-tuned guitars, and they hit so hard. The last two tracks, Abysmo Part 1 and 2, are two of my favorite tracks I think they've ever written. There are some gorgeous, catchy choruses and vocal lines on there that, again, I was legit shocked. But this album just keeps hitting you with wave after wave of just heavy, massive songs, and I absolutely love this album, and I have been jamming it ever since we reviewed it. Definitely check this one out if you've slept on it. Xibalba is absolutely amazing. Enslaved Utgard, or Utgard, not really sure how to pronounce that. Either way, it's an Enslaved album, and Enslaved has been pretty much batting 1,000 here lately, but I think they finally pushed past what they were doing. The last album, E, was remarkable, it was incredible, it was 100% Enslaved. This branches out a bit more into proggy territory. There are still loads of their black metal influence on here. Rootless still has his incredible blackened snarl, but there are a lot of clean vocals on here, and my God, the melodies on this album are absolutely amazing. This is one of those albums that if someone can actually get past some of the harsher vocals, they would absolutely fall in love with how melodic it is. Their new keyboardist absolutely makes his presence felt on here. There are so many lush synths on here, fierce 80s vibes. I loved every second of this album. I have jammed it quite a bit since, just because it's almost hypnotic and oddly poppy, but in a heavy way. It's just remarkable. I think this is one of the most adventurous albums they've written yet, and this is, I believe, their 15th, 16th album, I can't remember, and they are still absolutely just pushing themselves creatively, and this is a huge payoff. Amazing album, once again, from Enslaved. Temple of Void, The World That Was. Speaking of a band that really pushed themselves, this is the best Death Doom album this year, easily. Their last two albums were absolutely incredible, but they really, really pushed themselves in this one. You still get all those Death Doom grooves, the super heavy, low-tuned guitars, deep growls, but this actually had post-metal moments, lots of atmosphere, even clean vocals on here, and it all worked. This album is absolutely incredible to listen to because every song on here, I think, is vastly different. You have just flat-out groovy, riffy bangers, and then dense, atmospheric ones, songs that slow down to a crawl, and it doesn't seem to matter which mode they're pursuing, they do it very creatively. The songwriting is always crisp. This album is absolutely incredible, and from what I gather, this band is always pushing themselves to not repeat previous successes, so I am very curious as to where it goes from here, because this is a benchmark album for them, 100%. If you're a Death Doom fan, I strongly recommend this album if you haven't already picked it up. And yeah, if you haven't already picked it up, just pick it up. Just trust me on this one. I will say just trust me on this one. It's that good. Check it out. Undeath, Lesions of a Different Kind. Man, this was a late arrival, but man, it hit me hard. This is honestly my favorite death metal release this year. I really didn't know much about this band. I knew there was a lot of hype behind them, and then when I jammed it, I was thoroughly impressed. Off-time drumming, it's technical, but it's very riffy, loads of groove. The lead work on here is surprisingly crisp. It's not all dive bombs. It's very well thought out, just beautiful leads, but it is primal. It is heavier than hell. And my God, does this album have a lot of hooks. I love the frantic songwriting on here. It takes a lot of unexpected turns in songs, but these songs are absolutely incredible, and this album just keeps going. The momentum is never lost at any point on this. I absolutely love this release, and I think this is definitely one of my favorite new bands that have popped up here recently, and I will definitely be looking out for releases in the future from these guys because this absolutely blew me away. Check it out. On to the top three here, and we have Napalm Death, Throes of Joy in the Jaws of Defeatism. 16 albums in, and this is one of the best albums they have put out in their entire career. I could not believe how intense this album is, and that says a lot because Napalm Death is intense all the time, but this sounds so unhinged. Barney is delivering one of his most feral vocal performances, snarling and spitting into the microphone. And the songs are all over the place. You have your fierce grindcore bangers. You have flat out just kind of groovy, almost death metal, death grind songs. There are straight up noise tracks on here. There's more like post-punk moments on here, like Killing Joke worship. Honestly, there wasn't a track in here that I did not appreciate in terms of them really pushing themselves creatively and maybe throwing in some different influences here and there. This is such an awesome listen. This is definitely up there in terms of my favorite Napalm Death albums now. It might change going through all of them if we ever rank them all, but this album will be up there because this is one of the best of their career, flat out. Number 2, Midnight, Rebirth by Blasphemy. This is flat out one of the most fun albums I have listened to all year. Simple, but effective. All the riffs on here absolutely bang. It's that beautiful bridge between black metal and classic heavy metal. This is all that Motorhead love and Judas Priest, but mix that with like Darkthrone, and bam, you have Midnight. One-man band from my home state. Super proud. This could play a lot on nostalgia in terms of just growing up like an old school metalhead, but I flat out believe like every single song in here was absolute fun. Songs like Devil's Excrement, Rising Scum, and their lead-off single was called Fucking Speed and Darkness. I didn't throw the fucking in there. That's part of the title. That's awesome. That's a statement. This album is amazing from start to finish. One of the best of the year, hands down, and I've seen it on a lot of lists, and it should be there because this is an absolutely incredible listen. Check it out. And the #1 album of 2020, Mr. Bungle, The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny Demo. This year is weird because the best album that came out in 2020 actually came out in 1986. That doesn't make much sense, but neither does Mr. Bungle. And this is somehow the most Bungle thing they've ever done, but the least Bungle thing they've ever done. It wasn't until this year that I would ever associate Mr. Bungle with thrash metal. And what a ballsy move. Hey, we're gonna get the band back together. Well, not all of it, but we're gonna do something really creative. What are we gonna do? We're gonna re-record our original demo that sounded like shit from 1986. Cool. Who else are we getting on this? Dave Lombardo and Scott Ian. Okay, I'm in. This is one of the most ferocious crossover thrash albums I've heard. And these are long crossover thrash songs too. These things are all over the place. And Mike Patton delivers the most insane vocal performance I've ever heard. It was pretty much like his vocal performance on Cuckoo for Caca, but just stretch that to about an hour. That is pretty much it. He's not crooning, he's not singing on this. He is just frantically screaming, probably doing some permanent damage. I really hope not, because he's such an amazing singer. The musicianship is unbelievably tight. I believe I said it in the review that Scott Ian's pick hand moves faster than hummingbird wings. I stand by that statement. And Dave Lombardo is Dave Lombardo. It's Dave Lombardo. He is absolutely pummeling the hell out of the kid. Trey Spruance was absolutely shredding all over this place. I didn't know he really had that in him. And Trevor Dunn's bass playing is very reminiscent of Danny Lilker. It's very percussive and heavy. Everything about this album is great. I love the production on it. It sounds like it could have come out in 1986. And if it did, I don't know, man. The thrash world might have been changed there. This might be up there with those top tier albums like, you know, Rain and Blood, Master of Puppets, Among the Living. I've had a hard time putting this album down and not playing it. I have jammed this so damn much. I love pretty much every track on here, but I mean, Sudden Death, Raping Your Mind, Bungle Grind, Mathematics, all of them. Every single song on here is absolutely killer. And in terms of just kind of bringing up my spirits about this shitty year, granted, it's not all positive stuff on here. It's pretty dark subject matter, but I don't know. This just makes me smile, makes me bang my head, and that's what I needed. And Mr. Bungle delivered. If for some reason you skipped over this one, I can't imagine why anyone would skip over this one if you were a fan of thrash. Definitely check this out because, man, this is just insane and pure fun. And it pretty much encapsulates my love of all things thrash. And surprisingly, it came from Mr. Bungle. Mr. Bungle wrote the best thrash album and the best metal album, in my opinion, of 2020. Man, this year is weird. But if you haven't checked this out, check it out. It's absolutely amazing. So that will do it for my list of my favorite albums of 2020. Something good had to come out of this year, and thankfully it was music. I don't know if there were any really good movies that came out, but I mean, I didn't get a chance to go see them. The music, I did get to check out, and I'd say it was a pretty solid year for metal. And check out all these albums. Every single one I listed, every single one that the other guys list when they do their videos too. Check them all out because music helps. It's therapeutic in a way. At least it is for me. It helps out through the dark times, the bored times, the meh times, whatever. Even when I'm happy, like screw it, let's throw on some music and enhance the moment. And before I say goodbye here, I just want to thank every single one of our subscribers, all our viewers, everyone that comments in the live chats. All of you make this worthwhile, and you're part of the reason why we love doing this. I mean, we love doing this anyway because it's fun. It's metal. We grew up with this. But thank you all for making it even more enjoyable, and we plan on putting out a lot more content. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We will catch you later.